Most people think cardio equals more fat loss, but after gaining 25 pounds in my first year as a firefighter, I learned the hard way that that wasn't true. So I'm going to show you the surprising reason that cardio was actually making things worse and exactly what I did to finally lose 25 pounds of fat working as a full-time firefighter. In this video, I'm going to show you the 3-step strategy I used to lose 25 pounds of body fat in 16 weeks without doing extra cardio and without burning out. And step 1, the part almost every firefighter screws up, which ends up crushing fat loss, which is your recovery. As career firefighters, we don't have a problem stimulating our nervous system between calls from 2 to 6 a.m., white monsters, Zinn, you name it, we got it covered. So the goal isn't to add more stress to your training. The goal is to learn how to down-regulate while still meeting the job standard. When you think about your body like the engine at your station, you're not going to leave it in pump for 2 weeks straight or something is gonna break. You run it when you need it, when it's productive, then you refuel so that it's reliable, and even then it gets routine maintenance. When I made the connection that the problem was being overworked, I started doing the opposite of what every Instagram influencer was trying to tell me. I stopped trying to willpower fatigue, so I switched to 2 gym sessions per week, and I treated recovery like it was a part of the plan. Like it was something that needed to be structured, because on some stretches, on some cycles, I was living on 2 hours of sleep. And once I recovered enough to stay consistent, the fat loss finally started happening. 16 weeks later, I was down 25 pounds. So here's the rule. Find the effective dose. Too little doesn't change you, and too much is gonna end up breaking you. Now, training 2 days a week really helped me overcome fatigue, but I found out really quickly that it wasn't going to amount to anything if I didn't have a really dialed training plan to make those days count. So next I'm going to show you the structure I designed for 2 full body days, including examples for exercises that actually translated to keeping me safe on the fire ground. Most workout programs and trainers failed me because they assumed I was sleeping 8 hours and living a low stress life. Newsflash, I wasn't. I was working 2 miles north of the Detroit border, and sleeping on shift was basically an urban legend. What moved the needle wasn't finding the hardest program to destroy myself with. It was finding a program that I could run through bad nights on shift, and one that kept me injury-free, because the fastest way to lose progress is waiting for workers' comp to approve you to even get an MRI, let alone a surgery. And I started noticing a pattern in the firehouse, and once I say it, you're not going to be able to unhear it, because the fact is most injuries weren't dramatic Mayday moments. They were ankles, knees, low back, and shoulder injuries that happened on things like lift assists, in training, or honestly, just messing around at the station. Sorry, Chief. So I built my routine around the effective dose of exercise. It was the minimum effective work that made me stronger, but still protected my joints and didn't crush my recovery. For me, that was 2 days per week, full body strength and mobility that broke down into 5 movements per day and only 2 hard working sets each where you really make them count. For my knees and ankles, I would do things like knee over toe lunges. For my shoulders, I strengthened my rotator cuffs with the Cuban press. And for my lower back, I did things like Jefferson curls and single leg deadlifts. What I found was that when I built the foundation around movement quality, all of my other lifts improved. I got stronger than ever, and the low back pain that had plagued me for 5 years disappeared and never came back. Training like this is what let me stay consistent for years instead of going hard for a few weeks and then falling apart. Now here's the thing, 2 full body sessions a week took care of strength, mobility, and keeping my joints healthy, but even with that, I found that I wasn't losing the 2 to 3 pounds of fat that I really wanted to lose. And honestly, it wasn't until I fixed the thing that I'd been ignoring for years, because honestly, it sounded too easy. I needed a fat loss lever that didn't trash my recovery, and the missing piece was walking. So we're not gonna be working out 2 times per week and sitting on the couch the rest of the time, but the problem I had with using cardio to fill in the gap was twofold. First, it stimulated my nervous system in a way that drove my appetite way up, and it made sticking to my diet a nightmare, especially at the station when I was running back-to-back calls and already leaning on the stimmies. Second, high-intensity cardio for long durations was basically the worst trade I could make as a firefighter. Not only did it wreck my recovery, but nobody actually told me that when you push your heart rate higher towards a certain level, your body leans away from using fat and it leans more on glucose and carbs for energy. So in other words, it barely touches fat when you're doing it. And here's an easy example of what I mean. Look at long distance runners. They're thin by traditional standards, but a lot of them end up carrying a surprising amount of body fat. They're the perfect example of being skinny fat. Tons of work output, but not the body composition that most firefighters are actually going for. They burn a ton of calories doing one type of activity, but it doesn't automatically mean that they're building muscle or staying pain-free, and it definitely doesn't mean that it works well with a high-stress, low-sleep kind of lifestyle. So then I asked myself a different kind of question. If more cardio isn't the answer, what activity can I do more of that helps with fat loss without burning me out? And the answer was walking. Walking kept my heart rate lower. It didn't spike stress the same way, and it was extremely easy to recover from, which meant I could do it consistently even when I got 2 hours of sleep from running calls on regulars all night. And because it wasn't beating me up, it didn't trigger that same I'm starving rebound that I got from high intensity cardio. I could get the benefits without having to destroy myself in the process. For me, 10 to 12,000 steps per day was enough, and that included everything I was already doing throughout the day. Everything counted. In reality, it usually came down to 1 or 2 extra 30 or 40-minute walks per day, depending on what else I had going on at the time. And I could be doing other things while I was doing it. A phone call, a podcast, or just decompressing after a shift. When I added this into the equation with the first 2 steps, it became the missing link that actually got me to lose about 2 pounds of fat every single week. And by the end of 16 weeks, I was down 25 pounds and in the best shape of my life. All right, quick recap. I lost 25 pounds of fat in 16 weeks by going recovery first, then running a firefighter-proof 2-day strength and mobility plan, and replacing extra cardio with walking 10 to 12,000 steps a day. Now, if you want help applying this with your schedule and your station life, that's what I do. I've coached 500 plus career firefighters to drop 20 to 40 pounds, improve their mobility, and get their energy back in just 16 weeks. If you want to know more, then hit the application link in the description. If it's a fit, I'll reach out and we'll talk about your goals and whether or not I can help. Now, what I didn't cover today is the nutrition strategy that actually makes this whole system work for fat loss, especially with station meals. If you want to see what that looks like, then you can watch it right here. Remember, being in shape is part of the uniform. Until next time.